All right. Well, we'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. This is going to be the second in our series of three webinars. Today's topic is going to be analyzed with confidence, turning raw data into AI-driven insights. So for those of you who were with us for the first session, we started out talking about listen like a pro. And kind of leveraging the Qualtrics platform to capture the insights. Today, we're going to be analyzing. Want to reinforce, if you've registered for these webinars, you are automatically registered for all three. And so just something you can tab and put kind of a hold on your calendars. We've got our third session, which will be coming up in October. You can see there the time that we're planning for that, October 1st at noon Mountain Time. We will also be sending out formal calendar invites that will have the information on those. As we transition into the actual topic for today, again, for those of you who we haven't met yet, we're at Pepper. We're an official partner of Qualtrics. We're a platinum partner. We've been working together for a little over 9 years now. We've helped over 4,300 organizations with their various experience management needs. So we've got a wealth of knowledge and background that we hope to share with you. We'll be doing some of that today. But just so that you all know, kind of coming out of this, if you're sitting there saying, hey, love some of what we're seeing here, would love a little bit more of that hands-on support and guidance from some of the experts, our team is always happy and available to lean in with you. We're a full service experience management consultancy, so we can help with anything from the technical expertise and deployment, whether that's training or doing some hands-on work, keyboard work for you. We've got the advisory practice for more of the high-level strategy. We also have a custom engineering arm of our business when we need to get a little bit of a custom solution in place. So introducing the speakers and topic for today, we are joined by Alicia Caballero. So she is a master's, she has her master's degree in market research, has a background working for organizations like Cisco, um, and many others in the retail space, has worked with many of our clients as well. So she's really kind of representing that advisory and kind of thought leadership side of our consultancy. We'll start with Alicia. She's going to talk with us through kind of the practical, like bringing the application of the analytics and how we can leverage some of those AI capabilities in Qualtrics into really kind of the practical business setting, so you can all see how things look from a planning standpoint, an application, and then we're going to transition into a demo with Preston. Now, we want to note ahead of this demo that some of these features that Preston will be walking through are newer features in Qualtrics. You may not all have access to this functionality. And so if you don't, you can go ahead and get in touch with your Qualtrics customer success manager or account executive and talk about what it would look like to get that functionality added. We'll try to be cognizant about calling that out. In general, it's going to be a lot of this AI functionality will be the newer functionality. Some of you will have it, some of you won't. We just wanted to be transparent about that and call that out here right from the outset. But Preston will walk through a demo of that. Preston leads our technical implementation team. So his team are those Qualtrics experts. After that, we'll wrap up. We've got a few slides that we'll cover, kind of revisiting, wrapping up our customer story with Blue River Trail Gear. That's our fictitious customer that we've been using so far through the webinar series, and we'll continue to do so. And then we'll finish with a Q&A. And so feel free to use the Q&A session as we move along, try and capture those questions there. For the most part, we'll probably wait to address questions until the end of the Q&A. But still feel free to include those as we go along. That will be the best place for us to see those all in one location so that we can get to those through the Q&A session. So with that, let's go ahead and kick things over to you, Alicia.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Hello to everyone. Welcome back to our second webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how to analyze with confidence, leveraging Qualtrics. So we're going to be looking at three different problems today where there are Qualtrics solutions that can help you analyze with better confidence. So a common situation that folks with jobs like ours often find ourselves in is someone comes to our desk or sends us the email and they're like, satisfaction is down. What's causing it? Right? And it can be difficult to know where to start, right? You don't want to necessarily boil the ocean and look at every single question, cut by every which thing. So, how can we analyze smart and analyze confidently? Well, we're going to talk about three different tools that will help us with that. The first is the first problem that we interact sometimes when we're trying to figure out what is driving satisfaction or what's going on with our experience is finding the drivers, right? We don't know what actually does influence satisfaction, which leads to, maybe some guessing. So we're going to recommend and talk a little bit today about Qualtrics Stats IQ. It's a relatively traditional analysis tool, and we're going to talk a little bit about how it can help with correlations and some predictive patterns. It's a great tool to test hypotheses. Another problem that we run into a lot when we're trying to analyze our data is open text feedback. We talked about this a little bit in the webinar last week, but we know that sometimes insights can get buried in those piles of unstructured data, and it can take a lot of time to analyze manually. So we're going to be talking today about Qualtrics Text IQ, which is an AI-powered tool that helps identify topics and sentiment and themes. And then the final problem that we're going to be talking about today will be how to actually take that feedback and turn it into an insight. What do I do with it? So sometimes we can struggle with what to do with the research when things are dense or fragmented and we don't know how to act. So there's this great tool that Preston is going to walk us through in a little bit called Qualtrics Insight Explorer. This is another AI tool and it creates concise overviews, gives you some themes and executive ready bullet points that you can leverage. All right, does everyone remember Blue River Trail gear? They are our lovely case example. We're going to keep talking about them today. As a reminder, they are an outdoor equipment brand. We talked about the family who wanted to buy a tent and other camping gear a couple weeks ago. Today, we're going to be talking about Blue River again. And the situation we'll be talking about here is they had a drop in their satisfaction scores month over month. And the leadership is wanting to know why. And there's a hypothesis based off of store visits that there are location by location differences, and some of them are performing weak. Some other leaders have hypotheses, maybe there are staffing issues or other issues influencing day of the week specific. And then there are also some questionings from marketing around loyalty and how that impacts satisfaction. So the insights team needs to confirm, are any of these actually true? Next slide. All right, so here's our challenge, right? That satisfaction is down. We do have some theories, but which ones actually matter, right? And what's a correlation versus actually driving satisfaction? How are we going to disprove those? So to analyze with confidence, we need to uncover those real drivers. We need to test out some of those correlations. We need to look at patterns and really dig into that data and understand what's going on. And before we get into the demo, just a reminder to us all, that surface level analysis isn't going to lead to action, but learning how to click deeper and dig into that data further levels up actions and insights that can drive the business. So today, right now, Preston is going to be showing you these tools that will help you dig deeper to help you analyze with more confidence. So, all right, Preston.
Perfect. Well, let's jump right into it. First place I'm going to start. Let me get to the screen share here. So the first place I'm going to start is a very standard, traditional looking dashboard in Qualtrics. So we can see a few filters here at the top by store location, associate, loyalty member, if yes or no, what day of the week purchases were happening on. With our overall satisfaction, that satisfaction trended over time into the drop or significant drop in CSAT over the last, or the dip in CSAT over the last month, and understanding, hey, what's going on here? So looking into a few things with some of those hypotheses that were discussed earlier, yeah, we can see that a few stores are performing on a CSAT level lower than other stores. You know, we have a swing here of about a whole point from here over. But, you know, what does that tell us? Just having a low score for a certain location, you know, what's going on at that location that's providing that store. Now, there's a ton of things, but we'll look at some of the controllables that we actually have, you know, control over. Looking at some of the drivers, there's possible drivers, store environment questions, staff experience. Now, these are drivers of potentially what is driving overall satisfaction, their checkout speed, the ability to find what they were looking for, checkout and payment process. And we can kind of view all of those things as well. And then down here, we're looking at the different locations with how many responses each location has, the breakout of CSAT, with there's a few things in here that I'll call out, not necessarily our AI functionalities, but I think underutilized when building out dashboards. So this is ultimately a table that has a feature turned on that lets you know if there's a statistically significant difference in that point of data, so that we can see here that for Albuquerque, we can see that there is a statistically lower than normal score comparative to the rest of the other locations from their CSAT. Now, this is all sortable, but again, you know, what action can we actually take from that other than going to the store and trying to, you know, see what's going on? Okay. Down below, we have a couple other insights or some other features here that are just showing us open-ended responses and a word cloud showing most commonly used words. So this is, again, a very standard looking dashboard. We can gather some information here, but it's really hard to understand what actions can I actually take and what actually matters. What is the first thing, second thing I should do or prioritize in order to really improve these scores and to really confirm the hypothesis that it's really store or it's something else that might be carrying some weight. Okay. So let's dive into the first feature that we'll talk about here, which is Stats IQ. So Stats IQ is found in a couple of different places. Through the dashboard, there's an icon up here called Stats IQ, and that'll take us into this view. So Stats IQ is a more common feature found in most licenses nowadays. But this is a statistical analysis tool that's running a whole bunch of math in the background. Again, you don't need to be a statistician to use this tool. There are some pro tips and some things how to interpret tables that you're looking at, but it does let you know in plain English when you run some of these correlations and analyses on does it matter or does it not matter. So currently what I've done here is I've created a few relational correlations between overall satisfaction and a few metrics that were important to the business to try and understand. So we have loyalty member, how satisfaction is correlated to the store location, how satisfaction is correlated to the day of the week of the purchase as well from an in-store perspective. And we can see here that these three did find that there is a statistically significant relationship between these items, between how satisfaction is affected by the store location and by if they're a loyalty member or not, or depending on the day of the week. So drilling into the day of the week, we can see that under extremely dissatisfied, if we look at kind of the weekend data, Saturday and Sunday, we are seeing a statistically significant increase in extremely dissatisfied customers on Saturdays. And we can see from a somewhat dissatisfied and somewhat satisfied, a strongly significant decrease in those kind of in our top box of satisfaction. So we can definitely kind of confirm here that weekends have a statistically significant decrease in overall satisfaction. We see a higher increase in dissatisfaction and a lower or decrease in overall satisfaction. Okay, so this is a quick insight to understand, okay, great. Now I can pinpoint a little more closely what I should focus my time on instead of just understanding, well, let's look at the big picture. This store is performing more poorly. What do I do about it? Now I can go to a store and say, let's look at staffing on Saturdays and Sundays. Again, let's take a little bit of the guessing work out of it and dive into another tool called Text IQ. Now, again, Text IQ is going to be similar to Stats IQ, where it's going to be more found in most licenses. And let's go to a different page here that has a few additional visuals that I've added to this dashboard to take it that one step further to help the insights be gathered. So if I scroll down a little bit on this dashboard, we have run this through Qualtrics, text analytics tool and categorized all of these comments, over 2,500 comments, into categories. Now, these are all specific to retail locations, and Qualtrics has a great out-of-the-box library of categories that you can kind of build upon. But this is categorizing all of those topics. So now what we can do is say, we understand that there's issues on the weekends. So if I click on day of the week in my dashboard and I filter down to Saturday and Sunday, what are the topics most being discussed from responses that came in? So we see an overwhelming majority of responses are coming in with the topic discussing store experience. So we can see overall store experience, we see quite a big thing of red, which this is all sentiment analysis. It's running through Qualtrics back-end algorithms to provide a sentiment. The sentiment always ranges from a -2 to a +2. And so we can see, over about 55% of overall comments talking about store experience are negative, with 20 of those being mixed, where they might have some positive and negative sentiment associated to them. So the bigger the bubble, the more comments are associated to that. So it really gives us an idea or a bigger picture to say, well, we can see overall satisfaction is a topic. We can see it is mostly negative, but it's not the most commonly discussed item here. There are some other specifics. So we can look at employee or point of sale or product quality. Okay. So if we're looking at the store and you can drill into these items, I can click on store experience and it'll apply a filter at the top of my page to really drill into below the comments specifically associated to store experience. And so now I'm only looking at comments that are associated to store experience topics on the weekend. So it gets us one step closer and really drilling into what are specific things people are saying that I can pull insights from. Okay. And then scrolling down is another kind of text IQ piece. So looking at store experience still, topics or comments associated to store experience on the weekend, we can see other items related to store experience and the relative importance that those items have on the overall satisfaction of the experience that individual had at the store. And so we can see 23% of there's a 23% correlation between employee attributes and the overall satisfaction score. So now I can drill in even deeper to look at employee attributes as well to say, hey, well, what employee attributes are causing such an effect on the overall experience that someone has at the store? I can also see that this topic is grown by over 5%. So 5% more comments over the last 30 days have been associated. So we see a trend, a tick up in people talking about employee attributes, but it's gone down by half a point. So again, on a 5-point scale, half a point in a month could be a considerable amount. So we see it's directly related. So this might be an item to say, well, let's look at some employee attributes. Let's look at training, let's look at onboarding, let's look at those types of things that, affect what attributes people are recognizing in the stores. Okay. Going up into those things as well, we can see how all of this affects the overall satisfaction by location as well. So these filters are applied. We can see our Phoenix area is a large drop in comparison to our top performing stores or locations. But let's take it one step farther. Okay, this is one of the newest AI features that Qualtrics has released over the last couple of months, and it's called Insights Explorer. So this is a tool. I'll kind of walk through the generation, but for the sake of time, I've already kind of created two insights here that we'll look at. But generating an insight is extremely straightforward. If I want to generate an insight, I'd click that button, and it gives me 3 items that I can select from. Top themes to look out for, some headlines, or a concise summary. So depending what I'm looking for, I've selected this for the purposes of today, getting an in-depth overview of your data set, including sentiment, actionable takeaways, and example comments for 3 to 5 top themes. So the number one question we always get in implementation is, if someone's looking at the dashboard, they're not a data analyst, how do they know what they should do? The analysis paralysis is a thing, and diving into things that aren't necessarily actionable or don't carry any statistical significance is in a period of wasted effort. So let's take a look at some of these insights that I've ran. So specifically, I've run 2. One that is targeted across all days of the week, no filters applied, is just a general overview of what people are talking about, looking at the open-ended comments. So if I click on this, we can see that it says, hey, there's concerns about inventory and staff expertise with suggestions for improvement. So I'm not going to read everything in here, but we can start seeing that they suggested improvements to the store layout and signage for better navigation. Additionally, the high music volume near checkout area was noted as a barrier to effective communication with staff. So these comments provide valuable insights for enhancing overall shopping experience. So that we can see, interesting, our music's too loud. So that is a simple, quick win that we can provide stores to watch the volume of the music playing in the stores. Inventory and restocking. So we can see there are recurring requests for restocking before weekends. So again, our hypothesis of the day of the week having an effect on overall satisfaction. We saw dips in overall satisfaction by the weekend. And so we can see most likely a direct culprit of that is items being out of stock. So relooking at those that are stocking the stores, what that looks like from a morning perspective, if that's items just not in the store to stock. So understanding what's going on at these different locations. Now, a lot of other variables, uncontrollables about size and different things like that. But now we're looking at a key topic that it found around staff experience and assistance. Many associates were specifically mentioned for their friendly and knowledgeable service. So we have that going for us. But the staff's ability to suggest alternatives and provide product comparisons was appreciated as well. So it's pulling out a few things, some wins, and some key areas to focus on. So checkout and queue management. So it did find, again in here, some people mentioned that the checkout process was efficient for the time of day, indicating variability. But suggestions were made to open additional registers during busy times to improve efficiency. So again, staffing, what that might look like during peak periods. So, and it gives examples of kind of verbatims that people left. So music volume, store ambiance, store layout, and signage that was mentioned as well. So this is one step further that we can go to really get a key insight. Now, if I was to go back and look at the one we pulled for the weekend specifically, we'd be able to see, okay, specifically to data coming in on weekend purchases, we do see that checkout process was something very specifically discussed, um, was slow, causing frustration, increased number of cashiers during busy periods to reduce wait times. So again, found that wait times are the music volume again mentioned, inventory and restocking. So now we have very actionable things that we can take to these different locations. Now, again, with this, you have the ability to really get granular into the insights you generate, or you can filter by a specific location. So if I want to view, hey, these locations are performing the poorest, I want to generate an insight specifically to this location to see what people are specifically saying about this one location instead of kind of the organization overall. Okay, so all said and done, that gives us a much clearer picture and much quicker way of gathering an insight to really take it to a location or take it to kind of action planning, and rolling out process changes within the organization that really have a direct correlation to someone's satisfaction. So I'll kind of pause it there with the demo and turn it back to Alicia.
Awesome. Thank you, Preston. Brooklyn, I think we had one more slide. There we go. Uh, Thank you, Preston, so much for that awesome demo. We were able to see how we used the 3 different tools to enhance our analysis so we had confidence, right? We realized that surface level views simply aren't enough. So we looked at how Stats IQ can show us what factors drive satisfaction. The Text IQ looked at the themes and the sentiment. And then the Insight Explorer was a great tool to generate those clear, actionable insights. This led to a really positive impact for our case study here, Blue River. Instead of chasing those assumptions, they were able to really dig into the hypothesis and now get to some evidence-based insights leading to the right action. And I think we're going to hand it back to Taylor now.
Perfect. So thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Preston. Hopefully that was helpful. I know that so much of the program is, Qualtrics provides an incredible set of technology for you to collect the data. We want to make sure that you're driving as much actionability and insights as possible from that. So hopefully this was enlightening in terms of maybe some new things that you can do with the setups of your existing analytics to take those to the next level. Hopefully gave you some ideas on what you can be doing. If you're looking at this and saying, this is good, but I'd love maybe a session or two with someone like Preston or someone from his team, or hey, we're just getting started and need to talk strategy of someone like Alicia, who's been doing this for over a decade and needs more help. Red Pepper, we're here to help out, make it easy, and provide that expertise to lean in. And so also want to call out, you'll see this as we head to the end after the Q&A section, but want to extend the invite now. Like Qualtrics, we love feedback. There will be a QR code that you can scan to provide your feedback on this webinar series. Our goal is to provide as much value and impact as possible for you in those programs. So please do take a moment, scan that QR code, provide that feedback, so that we can continue to drive, useful content for you all going forward. We also want to remind you again of the 3rd webinar that will be coming up in the series on October 1st, Act for Impact. So we'll be talking about closing loop, actioning, improving ROI on the data. With that said, let's go ahead and move to the Q&A session portion of the session here. So first question here, and Preston, this was during the demo. We had a question about how you get access to the Text IQ portion of the platform. And so they're asking, is it under the reports or the results tab? How can people navigate to get to that place in the platform?
Yeah, so there are 2 locations similar to Stats IQ. You can click on the neighboring icon right next to Stats IQ in your dashboard. Or the other place it's typically found if it's in your license is if you go to data and analysis under the survey. So if you go to your survey and click on data and analysis, there is typically a tab near the top left called Text IQ that you can click on to run it from the survey side as well. So either from the dashboard, there's an icon in the top right that says Text IQ that'll take you there, or in data and analysis from the survey.
Great, thank you. All right, so this next question, now that we see the satisfaction is related to the store location and the day of the week independently, can you show how we can analyze satisfaction by store location and the day of the week together? So kind of bringing the data together and looking at trends that way.
Yeah. Hey Nathan, great to great to see. I've worked with Nathan in the past. So typically the through the Stats IQ tool, there is an ability to create like a pivot table where you can create multiple kind of rows, and that's probably the recommended place that I do that. Otherwise, Qualtrics has released in Stats IQ a new ability to run R. If you know R code, that is one part of Stats IQ that you do have to be a little bit more familiar with the statistics of it all to run, but either through the R code or through a pivot table in Stats IQ, running the single key variable of satisfaction with kind of two sub rows of day of the week or location or any other metadata field, typically done in a pivot table, which is found in Stats IQ.
Okay, next question. Can you walk through how do you run the sentiment analysis on the open-ended responses and build this chart? And I think this chart
Yeah.
specifically, you had the topic and then you had the sentiment surrounding it.
Yeah, so the matter of how it's done, that is definitely something we can definitely support with as a consultancy to to Qualtrics. Don't have necessarily time to show the how-tos of actually configuring Text IQ in the tool today. We could certainly follow up with some documentation that Qualtrics has of step-by-step the configuration of Text IQ. So there's two parts to it. There's the setup of Text IQ in the tool, and then once you set up Text IQ, those fields become available to use in your dashboards, just like a survey question response, that you can use those fields to build those visuals in your dashboard. So it's kind of a dual step process. First, you configure the Text IQ, and then you can visualize the results of the Text IQ analysis in the dashboard. So a multi-step process. Again, we're happy to kind of dive deeper into that with you, not necessarily in this today, but we can also most likely follow up with the documentation in Qualtrics on the step-by-step.
Perfect. All right, this is a good question. What survey types are these features and specifically the Insights Explorer available for? Are they available on both the CX and the EX parts of the platform?
It's a great question. I'm fairly confident that Insights Explorer is available for both EX and CX. What I showed today was on the CX side. Text IQ is available in EX specifically, but the fields that are compatible with the Insights Explorer specifically is any open-ended field, so anything that's open text, and then any metadata field associated to that survey. So when you select the survey, it makes all metadata fields associated to that survey available as filters to filter down the insights it gathers when you run the insight for that open text response.
Great. And for those that do have that enabled, where do they find the Insights page in their for their Qualtrics account?
Yeah, I can share my screen one more time to show that one. At the top right-hand side of your screen, there is a waffle icon. I think there's many names for it, but there's a waffle icon right here, which is ultimately a navigation for different parts of the Qualtrics platform, depending on what your license has. The first step is to enable it through the administrative settings in Sites Explorer and turn on the AI tools. And then once you turn those on through this switcher or waffle icon, it is found right here through Insights Explorer.
Okay, perfect. The next one I think is related to and similar to a question we had, but what widget type was selected in the dashboard to bring the text IQ category bubbles?
Yeah, so that widget type is called a text IQ bubble chart. So the visuals I showed, one is called the text IQ bubble chart, and the other one that has the other analytics for text IQ is called a text IQ table.
All right, great. Next question. We sell services, not products. Our long form responses are a bit more complicated. Does Stats IQ read through long form feedback and gather insights not related to physical location and products?
Yeah, so the Text IQ and Insights Explorer definitely can take longer verbatims and analyze those. And ultimately, how Qualtrics handles it is one comment typically can talk about multiple topics. And so Qualtrics categorizes a comment into any topic that it could be associated to. So one comment isn't just associated to a single topic. It is typically multi-associated or associated to multiple topics to make sure it categorizes that comment to any topic that it should be tied to. And then Insights Explorer can pull bits and pieces out of one comment and interpret that as a similarity across other comments and pull insights out of pieces of a comment. It doesn't need to be the entire comment. So Qualtrics does handle longer verbatims that might come through in those instances.
This next one, I don't think we did show this specifically today, but probably something you could speak to, if not show, Preston. So where in Stats IQ did you see the statistical, the satisfaction level in day of the week were statistically significant? So how does Stats IQ help people see that?
Yeah, if you allow me to screen share one more time, I can show where that is found, and it might be small on the screen, so I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit to the indicators that are showing that. So if I look at, a more simplified one, let's kind of look at, and this might be a teaser into the kind of next webinar, but if we're looking at this, we're saying overall satisfaction and loyalty member, there's a statistically significant relationship between those two things. And where we actually see that is there's a couple of things. We can kind of show the statistical test. So it tells you what statistical analysis was ran. From that, we can click on how do I interpret the table, and Qualtrics will take us to documentation on how to interpret this table. It also shows a kind of a pairwise comparison. So again, some other tools, if you do know a little bit more about statistics on how it's kind of being ran from a row and column. But to answer the main question, if you see these kind of green arrows up or these red arrows down, those are what are indicating. If I hover over that, this text says the cell has a very clearly statistically significant lower value than typical. So that we can see for those that are non-loyalty members, we see a significant increase statistically in those that are extremely dissatisfied. And so we know that we can come to the conclusion that those that are loyalty members are probably more satisfied than those that are not loyalty members. And so tying that, again, this is something that we can now tie to, well, let's take a look and see how focus on those that are not loyalty members and turn them into loyalty members and know what average spend of a loyalty member is versus a non-loyalty member, to then know what is my ROI on that, to know if I increase my loyalty members by this, I know that the average spend is X, there's some ROI. Very oversimplified, yes, but this ultimately tells us that there's a statistically significant increase in those extremely dissatisfied for non-loyalty members. So these icons will tell us where the statistical significance is.
Great. Okay, this next question, I have Text IQ in my Qualtrics setup, but I don't have Insights Explorer. Is that a separate feature? It is. So
Yeah.
that is going to be, if you don't have that feature currently enabled, I would reach out to your customer success manager at Qualtrics or your account executive and talk to them. It is part of some of the newer license types that Qualtrics offers, but they can help you find out how to get access. Do you have to have Text IQ set up to use Insights Explorer, Preston?
No, they're completely autonomous of each other. So they're independent features. You don't have to have Text IQ set up to run Insights Explorer.
Okay. And for Text IQ, can you filter out certain words that you know might already be issues, but you want to specifically focus on others? Can this be done before or during analysis? Would this be done with filters automatically generated, or can you make these predefined?
For Text IQ, there isn't necessarily an option to change the algorithm that Qualtrics has on the back end. So um, to my understanding, no, there isn't the ability to modify that algorithm. There are some things you can do with filters. So you can filter out things from a dashboard perspective that might change the results of what are showing in Text IQ. But from a deeper part, you can't tell Qualtrics when it's running Text IQ to ignore certain things when it's running its algorithm.
Okay. With that said, that's where our custom engineering team has done things with JavaScript if we do need to, with things like redacting certain phrases or things like that. So if there's a specific use case you have in mind that you'd like to dig into deeper, we'd be happy to talk through that. Okay. What type of widget did you show that broke out locations with each column being a different question average score? I am playing with the various table type widgets and do not see options to set this up. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll share my screen one more time. If I think I know what you're talking about, the table that's showing this breakout. So if I share, if you're referring to this visual here, yeah, so I believe you're talking about this one. So this is specifically a table where the metrics that I've created are different metrics. So I have a metric of count, a metric of average CSAT, average metric of average ability to find what they needed. So these are all my kind of KPI and my drivers. And then the row is set up to be location. This also allows you to kind of look at these things. Now this might look kind of ugly, but if I clicked on day of the week, it allows for multiple rows. I have some statistical significance testing on these, but I'll just show you what this can do. It's kind of a pivot table in the sense, and it's very simplified, but this allows us to look at, location by day of the week. So we can look at for Albuquerque, we can see that for the weekends, we can see these, and these are the scores. This is all sortable, so we can sort from high to low as well and look at the highest CSAT by lowest CSAT. So there's things like this, and you can add multiple rows. But this is a table with all of the columns being the metrics, and then the row being kind of the breakout of location, gender, anything you want to, any metadata field you want to break that out by.
Great. Thank you, Preston. And for this next one, yes, if we can bring that back up. So it was asked if we have any case studies for public sector organizations. We definitely do. We work with a lot of public sector, work with groups from, really kind of the full gambit from tech to financial services, healthcare, public sector, um, locations-based businesses. So we do, and we have kind of folks internally that specialize in each of those areas. So what I would say is we'd be more than happy to talk through some case studies. If there's anything you have in mind, a great way to do that would be to scan the QR code. And then we would love to set up some times to kind of chat through that with you and talk through and see if there's any ways that we can help out or provide some recommendations or insights for you. Okay, the next question, can Insights Explorer summarize feedback in non-English languages, for example, French or Spanish?
Yeah, good question. So I believe Qualtrics by default can. Ultimately, the way I'd recommend doing that is you can translate open-ended comments from a different language back into English. That is done inside of the survey. If you go to data and analysis and click on the tools drop down, um, there typically is one thing you have to turn on from an administrative standpoint to allow third-party translations. But once you turn that on, if you go to the survey, click on data and analysis, click on the tools dropdown, there will be the availability of clicking translate comments. And it will allow you to translate comments in different languages back into English. And then you'd be able to use that. It creates a new column in your data set. So you keep the original responses and then a new column for everything translated back into English. And then that field you can ultimately use to run through Insights Explorer.
Great. All right. How do you communicate or share Qualtrics dashboards to stakeholders who don't have a Qualtrics account?
It's a great question. The recommended way of doing this is to provide them a Qualtrics account. Now, all of the newer Qualtrics SKUs do have unlimited user seats. So I know some older accounts are limited to the number of seats they have in their license. So for those accounts, there are ways to set up automated exports of dashboards. To email. So on a weekly basis, you can export the dashboard as like a PDF and as an Excel file that go to a list of emails that do not need to have a Qualtrics account. Now, to log into the dashboard and interact with the dashboard and play with these filters, you do have to have a user seat for them. But an export of just the dashboard, it'll have the text IQ, running Insights Explorer. There isn't a thing necessarily for that. You do have to be in the account. But the dashboard, you can do a daily, weekly, monthly export into PDF of the dashboard pages.
And that can be scheduled for various stakeholders, right, Preston? So if
Correct.
there's someone who wants to receive it on a Monday morning versus someone who wants to receive it on a Wednesday or Friday, they can set up different schedules for different stakeholders.
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, I think that takes us to the end of our questions today. So again, we want to thank everyone for your attendance. Please do share your feedback. We love to hear from you on anything we can improve on. Or for those of you, there were a few of you who had some follow-up questions, just make note of that in the survey that you'd like a follow-up, and we'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, we hope to see all of you again at the third and final session on October 1st. So thank you all.